Bonjour! Au nom de Desjardins, j'ai le grand plaisir de vous présenter Milla Craig, la lauréate dans la catégorie Affaires et entrepreneariat du 27e Prix Femmes de mérite de la Fondation des Femmes de Montréal. Je suis fière de soutenir cet événement bénéfice qui met en lumière des personnes d'action inspirantes qui, par leur engagement et leur réalisation, ont un impact positif et durable dans notre société. Chez Desjardins, nous tenons à redonner à nos communautés et c'est pourquoi il est important pour nous de soutenir le Why des femmes dans leurs activités et dans leurs missions pour assurer un meilleur avenir aux femmes dans diverses situations d'inégalité sociale. Dans les derniers mois, les entreprises, organismes et individus ont dû faire preuve de créativité pour répondre efficacement à ces nouveaux défis. Chez Desjardins, nous avons dû nous ajuster pour soutenir nos membres et clients, protéger et aider nos employés et créer un sentiment de cohésion entre tous, même à distance. Nous avons besoin de vous. Alors soyez des nôtres le 18 mars prochain pour célébrer cette femme exceptionnelle et bien d'autres. Pour plus de détails, visitez le site prisfemmesdemérite.com. Bonne découverte!
Welcome and thank you for taking a moment to discuss with me. Before we start, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Kim Sullivan, and of course, Milla, tell us a bit more about you.
So it's Milla Craig. I am the founder and president of Milani. Milani is a Montreal-based boutique ESG advisory firm.
Okay. We just saw a message from our partners at Desjardins on the motivation behind their decision to support not only your endeavors, but also the Women of Distinction Award. One thing did jump out at me, and it's something that we've been seeing a lot in 2020. Of course, they mentioned that everyone, businesses alike, had to adapt this year and had to be quite creative in their way of adapting. I'm assuming that is something that you've seen quite a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, across the board with all of our clients, everyone has had to reassess their organizations, reassess their clientele, reassess the direction of their business. And likewise for ourselves, like everyone, as the pandemic, the first wave of the pandemic hit, there were lots of question marks about our own clientele, whether people would continue with their business practices, and everyone asked. And we took we got creative. We decided to do something unique and different, and it's paid off in spades, because what we've ended up doing is adding incredible value to our clientele. And at the end of the day, that seems to be what's bringing more and more of them to us, is the fact that we stepped out of the box and did something a little bit different than most in the market. So,
were you surprised by the reaction? Is it scary to go out of that box and then you get those responses?
Not really. I mean, I think I've lived my whole life kind of stepping out of boxes. In entrepreneurship, you have to kind of get up there and do it yourself. And I think it was more so the immediate reaction with the pandemic was, I think for most people, fear is what's going to happen to my business. For the first few weeks, it was running numbers in different scenarios. And at that point, it came to me, hey, let's try this. And I think that's what entrepreneurship in business is really about, is just, making those jumps, calculated risks, and making jumps. And it was fun. It was fun. And it's been incredibly rewarding to see the reactions.
Well, creativity is actually the theme under which you have, the theme that has been dedicated to you, I should say. I'm now understanding more and more why, and we've only started talking. What inspires you to be so creative?
I have a 9-year-old. That certainly helps, because on a day-to-day basis, she's up to new challenges. She's facing life as she's growing. And like I am in business in my personal life, it's, when I kind of come up against a wall, I rarely take no for an answer. For me, a no is, well, I have to find another way. And so, that's part of it. I'm not a musician. I'm not an artist. I'm not, so my creativity seems to come out in my work. And I love it. To me, what I do is not work. This is my passion. I work to help businesses transition.
Sorry. I was going to say, is it easier to manage that work-life balance then if, being a mom?
I don't know if it's ever easy to manage the work-life balance, but my work isn't work. It's fun. It's, but I am very committed to my weekends with my family. I rarely work on weekends. That is my downtime, which is, again, coming back to creativity. That's part of it. I need quiet time. I need space with my family. I need space not to be thinking about my work. And listen, we spend a lot of time in nature, and that nourishes me, but it also nourishes creativity. Walking through the forest and just getting, seeing this stuff and going, oh, we could do that. And, using it as inspirations, I think is a big part of my balance per se.
Well, let's talk about work a bit. You founded Milani in 2008. This is a time where people did not really know or maybe followed corporate social responsibility, nor did they ever speak of environmental, social, and governance. So what made you develop that concept? Why was it so important for you to do so?
Well, I've been working for 15 years in capital markets. So those images you see of people working in the stock markets, that was me. And, it's intense, but again, I loved it because it was about, providing capital to businesses who were trying to grow and to make a difference. And on the other end, helping investors, large investors, invest for you and I with our pension funds, et cetera. And I had seen this was just before the financial collapse in 2008. And you could see things happening in the market that were unstable. And I just felt like eventually maybe I was, I couldn't find where my values fit into my everyday work. And that was a big part of this transition for me. And at the end of the day, I really went out on a limb. A lot of people thought I had fallen and banged my head in a very big way. Because 12 years ago, this was not on the agenda. And, many of my former colleagues thought I had just completely lost it, which is really fun because today they're clients. And, that's how the beauty of, entrepreneurship. Sometimes you actually have to go out, and it's pretty lonely out there, I will mention. There were years where there wasn't any pay because I believed in this business and I believed that we could make change happen. And it's fun to have created a business because this didn't exist before. So back to creativity, creating a business where there is now demand for that service. It took vision 12 years ago to be able to see the changes that we would need. But it was also my calling card in my former career was that I was a puzzle maker. I was able to pull pieces together and say, wow, there's a theme here. There's something new. So I guess to some degree, I used it for my own purposes. And and now I get to, serve others with that same creativity.
Well, we can see that you're passionate about this. And I'm sure passion helped because, let's be frank, women, finance, it's a tough world. Let's put money aside. Is there any other topics that you think women use as taboo or maybe scared of approaching? And how would you tackle those uncomfortable topics? Like, what would be your advice for women that are trying to break that glass ceiling?
Well, I think it's really interesting, that question, because it's really coming to the surface right now. I mean, we've been talking about women, diversity, gender diversity for a long time. And the conversation today is actually starting to shift from not just diversity, but diversity and inclusion. And it's, I think there are many women who have broken that ceiling and find themselves as the solo woman around the table, the boardroom table. But if you're not included, in the decision making, then you're really there as a trophy. And no one wants to be that. But, you know, it does take that first woman on a board. It does take that first. So, you know, I raise my hands to those women who have done that for us. But I think we're now at a point in time where corporations and business are really starting to recognize the value of having diverse voices at the table, because we make better business decisions. And, you know, so I think it's one of the hardest things is, you know, the hardest is to get in the door, but once you're in the door, it's how do you get included? And, you know, I don't know that I have all the right answers on that front. You know, it's being collaborative, it's being cooperative, it's being part of a team, you know, bringing your ideas to the table and not being afraid. Again, I think I come back to fear, just not being afraid to share your ideas. And yes, someone might steal them, but it's better for someone to steal them and the idea to blow up and to become something than to hold it into yourself. I guess that would be my piece of advice.
No, that's a great piece of advice. So not to, I guess, hold a grudge at the same time if your voice is not immediately the one heard, as long as the group kind of gets to that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to speak it up. I think, you know, I think a lot of women kind of hold back at the table. And so I think it's a two-way, you know, this is a two-way dilemma, right? If you're not being let in, that's one thing, but on the other end, we need to speak up. And maybe the best for me, you know, I grew up in Prince Edward Island, and 8 of 9 children. Yeah. And I had many older brothers and sisters, mostly brothers. And my mother used to just tell me, just go and get in the car. Like, don't ask, don't, you know, because I would complain that I was being left out. And she was like, just go get in the car. If you want to go someplace, put yourself there. And so, you know, it's remained with me my whole life, which is, you know, if I want to be someplace, just put yourself there. And participate. You know, it's not about holding grudges or not. To me, it's really about participate, collaborate, you know, put your ideas out there. Don't be afraid to share. And as you do that, other people will be attracted to you. And, you know, we can go, it's the old adage, right? We can go further together than we can alone.
Well, let's talk about this big family of yours, modest background. You were the first one to go to university by working 3 jobs to pay for your studies. You say that a trip to Africa actually changed your way of seeing things forever. So how important is it for people to use their background and their life experiences in their way forward?
Oh, for me, it's incredibly important. Again, you know, very humble beginnings, but the value of work was something that was drilled into us, that, you know, you get up in the morning and you do an honest day's work. So the values that my parents taught us are the values that I carry today. And I think those are the same values that our clients really value. You know, but those humble beginnings, you know, weren't what allowed me to go to Africa. And, you know, the trip to Africa was a dream come true. But, you know, there are many beautiful things, and we saw many beautiful things. But I also insisted with my husband that we travel into the more difficult areas. I wanted to know the heritage. I wanted to know what happened with apartheid. And, you know, it really, little did I know that, you know, that connected to responsible investing and the world that I'm in today. But it was through that trip that I learned so much about the history of South Africa. And I remember going to Soweto and being invited into a woman's home. And it was just one of those life-changing moments where I just realized that I needed to do something, that, you know, these inequalities were something that I needed to try to find a way to use my life to serve, to try to balance that out in some fashion.
Incredible. You gave me goosebumps. I wanted to ask, because of course, everybody talks about 2020 and how this year was so difficult on us. you had that experience in Africa. You devoted your life to making a change. You got to where you are today. You're receiving this award. Do you think that after this hard 2020, a year that has been demanding in so many spheres of our lives on so many levels, when it comes to corporate social responsibility, do you think some people will leave that, they have left it a bit behind in 2020? Do you think that will twinkle in 2021?
Oh, I think it is more important than it's ever been. And I mean, we talk further. I mean, our specialty is more with the financial markets, but the reality is we talk about E, S, and G, so environmental, social, and governance issues. And the environmental and governance issues are pretty well known. But it was the social one. We always say it was the poor child in the family, it didn't have a seat at the table. Well, this pandemic has put social issues front and center, worker health care, how are organizations treating their employees, the people in their supply chain. All of this has been brought to the forward view of society. And I think we're making different choices. People are making different choices right now. But more importantly right now is the financial markets are making huge changes. And they are valuing many of those actions of things that they could never see before. But what the pandemic did is it happened so quickly that as investors, we were all of a sudden able to see the actions and evaluate organizations on actions they were or weren't taking in such a short period of time. And that has an impact on your reputation over time and your ability to attract employees, your ability to attract capital. So the marketplace is very aware. And I mean, that we're just talking social, but the environmental piece is layered on top of that now with climate change. And what we are seeing is that the financial markets are actually moving in a very fast pace. So, corporate social responsibility to me, ESG, it's just table stakes. If you want to run a business today, you have to be aware of these issues and you need to be working towards improving them all the time. Because there's society has an expectation today on it, but so do your investors, your banks, your insurance companies. The comment is we are in a transition economy right now. We are, this pandemic on top of climate change is creating a change like we haven't seen since sort of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So we are about to live some very difficult choices on top of what we already have. But I guess my comment is, I don't know what the new normal is, but I know it's going to be a new normal.
It's a whole new culture that's just waiting for us to discover. To create. Oh, well, that was such a beautiful way to end things. Thank you so much. As I said, you gave me goosebumps. It was an inspirational talk. I guess we could say we know you better now. PEI grown. A big thank you also to, of course, our partner Desjardins for their support towards you, as well as the Women of Distinction Award. I would love to take a moment before we end to remind everyone that the Women of Distinction Award ceremony is happening on March 18th. It's virtual, of course, but it's going to be in a beautiful, warm ambiance. There's going to be artist performances. It all starts at 8:30. And it's under the theme of togetherness. So we really hope that we will see you there by buying a ticket. You help maintain and improve the different services, of course, offered by the des Femmes de Montréal, which helps reduce inegalities, exclusion, violence. And as we know, the pandemic has hurt them as well as the women and the difficulties that they have on a daily basis there. That's been exacerbated. So the why is there for them, and we would love for you to keep supporting them. Again, a big congratulations, Milla. It was amazing to talk to you, and we hope we'll see everybody at the award ceremony.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.